Let me talk about something else that is interesting that I know that it's always in vogue, never goes out of style. And it has to do with this idea of cage-free, range-free, non-GMO, sustainably sourced, labelings. There's so much out there. Help me understand, guys, from your perspective, what trends you think are permanent related to these labels, if you will? Which ones are permanent? Which ones are here? Which ones are kind of marketing tactics? You understand this particular part better than I do, so I'm very curious and I want to learn more, so go ahead.
I guess I'll be really quick. I think the ones that are permanent are the ones that are backed by science. So the ones that are actually nutritionally relevant and not just purely claims. Speaking specifically about sugar, we're starting to get more educated as to sugar's effect on the body in a way that we weren't, 5 years ago, 7 years ago. And I think the things that can be backed by real data and science and doctors are then going to be the claims that are here to stay versus just some that reflect a small percentage of the population.
I think with people being more educated, I think, in the 80s and early 90s, we had all the trend diets, the no-carb diet, this, and, they phased in and out left and right. But people now that are truly concerned about what they eat, vegetarians, vegans, I think that is the new way to eat. And if you adapt that and embrace that, those old diets, they used to say obviously they don't work because once you start eating whatever you want, then you gain all the weight back. But people that really want to care about what they eat, it's not about dieting and so much, it's about a lifestyle change, and I think that's what we're seeing in this country.
Yeah, I don't know that I can predict which of these trends will stick, but I do think the operating model that we're starting to talk about here is going to stay. So I'll give you an example. It's much more simple today to monitor what people are searching for, especially in an environment like Amazon Fresh. So as a supplier, you can discover what are people searching for. And if you have products that are relevant, you want to make sure that you're optimizing the description and the title and the ingredients and nutritional information so that, boy, people who are looking for whatever the trend at the moment is, if you've got something relevant, scientifically backed, whatever, they find it. But there are really nimble companies that may not yet have something that's relevant that are looking at those search logs where they're reading the review text, maybe not of their own products, but competitors' products, and they're not looking at the 5-star reviews, they're looking at the 3-star and below for things that are needs in the market that are underserved. I like it, but it didn't have this attribute or benefit or characteristic. And I think that level of sort of feedback loop that's continuously happening between consumers and the retailer and the manufacturer is having really profound impacts in the part of the industry that I spend my time in.
So I'm still confused as to who do I trust, right? Because I hear whatever is backed by science, but we've all heard fake news, right? And there's a lot out there of frou-frou science. So at the end of the day, it's still about how do you convey that science and the merits of that so that by the time that I actually see it in the package and I see it out there in the fancy color, I can create some element of relationship with that as being the right thing for me.
You know what? That's really interesting because we just won in November the Food to Market Challenge. If any of you are familiar with it, it was a supply chain competition sponsored by the Chicago Community Trust. And the judging panel consisted of some folks from the investment community. Hi, Bram. But anyways, so I had a conversation with one of the judges afterwards who's very committed to sustainable food on a very personal level, and he asked that same question. How do I know when I go to the store and it says antibiotic-free chicken or this is organic? And my answer being in the institutional space is, well, just check out the certification. He's like, what certification? I said, well, everybody who makes a claim actually will have some sort of certification that exists, otherwise it's just packaging. And he said, well, where do I find that? Well, our technology actually traces that. So every time we put a vendor in the system, we upload their certification, and not only that, but we keep track of when it expires, and when it expires, we take them off our system until they update it again. And so I think there's this whole thing that happens on the institutional side where the claims have to be backed up, and that we keep track of that. And the consumer, on the consumer side, there's a lot of marketing, I think, sometimes that might end up on the packaging that isn't backed up, and I think that there's this disconnect, and I think we're trying to bring that visibility and transparency and make that available to everyone.